I notice your tone right now is really aggressive. I'm curious what you're feeling in this moment.
What I'm feeling is that you've asked very hard intellectual questions. I'm answering you, and you're minimizing my answers, and that's okay.
And now you're like you're projecting onto me. I'm not minimizing your answers. I'm saying what I think that is, and I'm reiterating what you have told me what you think it is. I'm not minimizing you, and for you to try and...
Yes, sir.
With your creation by design, I propose that nature creates messages without intention all the time. There's a scientist who, I think it was in the 80s, if I remember, caught radio waves coming from outer space, right?
Yep.
And it looked extremely similar to radio waves here on Earth. And she named it GM1. Can't remember her name, but it was for Green Men 1. And they started trying to decipher what this radio message was, right? Later they found out that it was a neutron star spinning at a constant rate, shooting out radio waves. So that was a message that we received without a designer, without intention. And I think that would be the same for DNA. These chances that you're talking about, it's because they're over billions and billions and billions of years. Even the most minute chance of something happening is going to happen if you have infinite time.
Okay, just listen to what you're saying. Billions and billions of years. How many billions?
About 14.
Okay, good. So it's a limited amount of time.
Well,
14 billion years, right?
14 billion years is how long we know that it's been going on. Which means that somehow in that time, those chances occurred. But there was always a chance that it could have been 36, and then now would have been 36, or whatever. We would have had infinite time. It just happened before 14.
Well, I'm sorry. According to science, we don't have infinite time for this universe. How old's the universe?
Well, we can trace back to the Big Bang,
Yeah.
the singularity, 14 billion years.
Okay.
But there could have been a before that too as well.
So what you're implying is, what you're positing here is there are multi-universes, right?
No.
Well, then what are you saying? If the Big Bang occurred 14 or 15 billion years ago,
Yes.
then all we have is 14 billion years for, by chance, all of this happening.
14 billion years is the creation of the observable universe. There could have been a before, because the main theory is that it was from a singularity that then expanded.
Yeah, what on earth
But
is
that
a singularity?
The singularity is where all matter and energy are condensed into one tiny little speck.
Yeah, and what's the evidence that that existed?
I don't know, I'm not an astrophysicist, but theoretical physicists do say that there could have been a before that singularity. The singularity is just as far back as we can trace.
Right.
But
if
there's
you
no
study singularity carefully, you will know that it means almost nothing. It's so hypothetical, it's impossible to understand. Singularity. Before the Big Bang, there was singularity. What does that mean? It means almost nothing. It's meaningless. Now, in 1963, Arno Penzias, who was part of discovering the Big Bang, pointed out that the Big Bang is clear evidence that there's got to be some type of creator, because there's a beginning, and everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe has a beginning, therefore the universe has a cause. And to bank your eternal destiny on singularity, sir, that's a crapshoot. It means nothing, singularity.
The singularity is theoretical. We just think that the Big Bang theory. But so is God. God is theoretical.
No!
Yeah, where's the evidence, man?
It's real simple. Order and design never comes about by chance. Order and design, 100 times out of 100, point to an intelligent mind. If you prepare a delicious meal, set it before me, and then tell me there's no cook, that's ridiculous. A delicious meal points to a chef. If you point me to a beautiful piece of artwork,
There might be a design mechanism, but that doesn't mean there has to be a creator, because there are rules of the universe, the 3 laws of thermodynamics, energy, matter, how they all interact with each other, chemistry and physics. There's laws to this universe. That's what crafted us, not a creator.
notice what you say. That is what crafted us. So you see what you're saying is the rational mind, you believe in miracles more than I do. Because you believe that the reason comes from non-reason. Of course you do. Every atheist believes reason comes from non-reason. I could never have so much faith to believe that. Why? Because in my observation and experience of life, reason comes from reason. Reason never comes from non-reason. Second point, my atheist friends have far more faith than I ever would have. They believe that life comes from non-life.
Yep.
Yeah. Think about that a while. Life comes from non-life. Really? Give me one example from your observation of how life comes from non-life.
Decomposition. You know, you go into soil and there's like a dead animal, and of course over time that soil will actually go into like developing nature of the plants per se.
Yeah.
So it's just actually, there's your example that yes, it comes from life.
No, sir.
Well, that's life.
Plant life comes from plant life. Animal life comes from animal life. Human life comes from human life. You never get life coming from inanimate matter.
Well, let's define life. What is life?
Animate, living organism, be it plant life, animal life, human life.
You use living as a premises for your definition. Life, in
said
essence, is a series of chemical reactions. So who's to say life is basically a subjugation created by humans. It's a category that we created.
Fine. If you don't understand the word life, don't listen to me any longer, because I'm trying to use reason. And if you don't understand what life is, a living organism is animate, as opposed to inanimate. Fine, animate. Animate organism is life.
So
Inanimate organism is not life.
The sun is life then. It's a chemical reaction, it is animate, it is moving. Do you see what I'm saying? Life is a
That's not what I said. You're
categorization.
totally misquoting me.
But
I am
I'm
convinced
using
this is
your
not alive.
definition.
I am convinced this is inanimate matter. I am convinced that you are alive. You have a life.
Yes.
There's a qualitative difference between you and the inanimate. You're animate, this is inanimate.
That's not the sun. I'm talking about the sun.
Your lack of perception is what you're defining things by, not by your knowledge of what is actually real.
So you honestly think this is alive?
I'm saying it's animate. You're saying it's inanimate.
Inanimate, right.
Right.
Okay, we disagree. I am convinced that there's life in nature, there is life in animal life, there's life in human life. But this is not alive. This is inanimate matter. Very real, very important. I walk on it, I trust it, but it's not a living organism or a living being.
Defined by the cultural zeitgeist right now, or like, all right, our limited conception of what atoms and molecules actually are, what consciousness actually is, because you're defining it based on where you're coming from.
Yeah, and you're defining it according to where you're coming from,
Right.
okay? So we all are fully aware of the fact that we're defining stuff according to where we're coming from. You're doing it, I'm doing it, correct.
Yeah.
All right? Yeah, that's right. So don't imply otherwise.
I notice your tone right now is really aggressive. I'm curious what you're feeling in this moment.
What I'm feeling is that you've asked very hard intellectual questions, I'm answering you, and you're minimizing my answers, and that's okay.
And now you're like you're projecting onto me. I'm not minimizing your answers. I'm saying what I think that is, and I'm reiterating what you have told me what you think it is. I'm not minimizing you, and for you to try and take it in that direction right now is telling of where you're coming from.
Okay, well, let me ask you then. Did you not say to me, this is just your cultural zeitgeist that motivates you to say this? Do you know how judgmental and demeaning that is? You know, the only reason you believe what you believe is because your cultural zeitgeist. That is so demeaning. No, she has a mind. She can make her own decisions, or she doesn't have to.
That's just where we come. I'm saying that's where we come from.
And I disagree. I'm insisting.
Right, your answers are coming from somewhere other than what you're surrounded by.
No, that's not true. You're wrong. The rational mind is real. Yes, man. What about it?
Keep thinking.
You keep thinking. All right, I will. I have no choice. I get to ask questions all the time.
I think you need something to, like, lets you believe and like have hope. I think you can just go outside, breathe the air, and be like, wow, it's nice to be alive today, and go about, do whatever you do.
Okay, let me tell you why I can't disagree more with you. Because you and I are pretty well off financially. You and I know where the next meals are coming from, where the roof is for over our head. And therefore, for us to say, well, just, let's just live. It really doesn't matter what we do. Let's just live.
We're talking about
That's easy for someone who's getting an education at a fine university with great career potential. What about the people who don't have that as an option?
Then why are they the most giving?
Why are they the most giving? Because they have consciences that help inform them that there's more to life than just live and let live. There's such a thing as compassion and sacrifice, which are real values, not relative values. Real values. Pardon?
They don't need money to do that.
No, they don't need money to do that. But if you're going to feed a starving person, it helps to have money. And if you're going to feed a starving person, it helps to have food that you can give to that starving person. That helps a lot.
How can you talk about the afterlife if you haven't died? And so,
Good question. How can I talk about the afterlife if I've never died? Jesus Christ died, rose from the dead. He talked about the afterlife. The evidence is you can trust Jesus Christ. That is why I'm convinced there is life after death.
you just believe some dusty old book?
Some dusty old book. I was under the impression you were paying a lot of money to read some books here.
I never pay for no Bible.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you don't read the Bible and buy one. They're very good reading.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think he talks to you?
Does God talk to me? Absolutely.
What does he tell you?
Pardon?
What does he tell you every morning?
He tells me how much he loves me. He tells me that I'm here for a purpose. He tells me that there's hope for the future, because the future is ultimately in his hands, and he gives eternal life to all who trust in him. So that is why I have hope. And he brings me great joy, because he actually loves me and lives in a relationship with me.
I think those are good mantras.
Good. Check Jesus out. Read the Gospels.
I don't, like, I see where you're coming from, but I don't need, like...
Okay, so what are you living for?
Yourself.
Just to live.
Okay? You agree with him? You're living for yourself, right?
Why
I'm
is that a bad
not born for a reason, right?
All right. So what's the evidence that the purpose of life is to live for yourself?
I don't think
Who said it's for God?
I just said I
Come on, one of you speak at a time. We can't have stereo here. What is the evidence that the ultimate purpose of human life is to live for me?
I'm not saying it's for
Human
me.
nature. You don't need evidence. Thanks for your honesty. You just blindly believe the purpose of my life is to live for me.
That's what you do.
I'm number one.
That's called
I'm the
faith,
greatest.
buddy.
So I'm living for me. No evidence that that's true, but it's something I just accept. Okay, that's gullible, blind faith.
That's what
Exactly.
Christianity is.
Yeah,
No. Christianity is saying Jesus Christ, who lived a sinless life, who taught amazing teachings, who died loving and forgiving his enemies, and who 3 days later rose from the dead. This Jesus Christ is reliable. That's genuine Christianity.
Say so.
And the evidence is Christ is more reliable than I am. That's why I'm not standing out here saying, believe in me. You'd be an idiot to believe in me. I'm a very fickle, finite human being. But Jesus Christ, you'd be very wise to believe in him. Because the evidence is he's reliable. I can promise you, if you die and rise from the dead, I'll listen very carefully to everything you have to say. Well, Christ did it. He died and rose from the dead.
Now he's dead again.
No, he's not dead again. He's alive. Yes, ma'am.
How do you know that the stuff in it is still accurate?
Good question. Whenever I'm confronted by a book that claims to be giving me historical truth, like the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, giving me historical truth, it claims, I'm a skeptic. But I'm not a cynic. Because if you tell me that years ago, historically, there was a cure found for polio, that is an historical truth. And there was a vaccine for polio that was found. If you tell me that years ago there was a cure found for infection, it's called penicillin, I would say yes, the historical evidence is there was a cure for polio found, discovered medically, and there was a vaccine for polio that was found and helped save a lot of people's lives. Those are historical facts. You don't repeat them. You don't find the vaccine for polio again. It's already been done. It's occurred. Historical knowledge is therefore different from scientific knowledge, because science is based on repeating the experiment over and over again. So, why would I trust Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to give me accurate historical information about Jesus of Nazareth? Because I have 4 tests that I use on any book to determine its historical reliability. And if you don't like my 4 tests, no problem, but I will press you if you claim to be intellectually honest. I will press you with a question, fine, no problem, but what are your tests that you use to determine historical reliability? So here come my 4. Internal consistency, meaning by that, are there contradictions within the text that point to massive confusion on the part of the authors? Second test, literary style. Once upon a time in the land of Nod, Wink and Blink and a Nod took a boat ride. That's not history. That's fairy tale. When you read the literary style employed by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, it is not once upon a time. It's at this time, in this place, with these people around, Jesus said this, he did that. Third test, archaeology. Are we talking about the island of Atlantis that none of us can visit? Is that where Jesus was born? No. Bethlehem, grew up in Nazareth, went on the Sea of Galilee in a boat. Archaeologically verifiable places and people like Pontius Pilate. Fourth test. Come on, man, haven't you ever played the game telephone? You sit in a circle and you whisper a secret into the ear of the person next to you, and by the time the secret reaches the end of the circle, it's totally perverted. Yeah, I've played that game. No, that's not how we have the New Testament. The New Testament that we have in English today is based on over 5,200 Greek manuscripts, and it was written in Greek, friends, not in English, not in King James. The New Testament was written in Greek. We have over 5,200 Greek manuscripts or pieces of manuscript found from 2nd century to 10th century around the Mediterranean, the known world, all agreeing to an infinitesimal degree. There is no document from antiquity that can even approach the New Testament in manuscript evidence. Does that mean it's the Word of God? No. Does it mean that it's historically reliable? Yes. So simply read the New Testament, not as the Word of God, but as accurate history. And ask yourself, does the historical evidence point to Christ being the truth, or does it not? And then based on the historical evidence, you make your own decision. Have I answered your excellent question?
I also wanted to talk about how, so in the Bible, there's a lot of sexism and also racism as well. And obviously during, slavery and the Civil War and colonialism, the Bible was used a lot to convert a lot of people, and especially the enslaved and black people that came over. So why should I, as a black person, want to be a Christian at all if it was used against my people?
Good question. Very good question. Thank you for raising it. If I say to you, it's easy, I don't believe in Muhammad because of 9/11. I'm a narrow-minded bigot. Well, you ask me, why did you not believe in Muhammad? I cannot reject Christ because of how he's been misrepresented by some Christian hypocrite. That's narrow-mindedness. Instead, I have to read the Quran to find out about Muhammad, what he said, how he treated people, what he taught, and how he died, and what happened after his death. And I also have to read the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, going to the source documents. And when you read the Gospels, you'll notice Luke chapter 4, his first sermon. He attacked racism as he told a synagogue packed with Jews how God loved Gentiles just as much as he loved Jews. The Jews were irate. They grabbed Christ, brought him to a cliff to throw him to his death. He almost got killed, his first sermon, because he communicated racism is wrong, because God created all of us and loves all of us equally. If there is no God, there is no such thing as equal rights. There's no such thing as rights. Because, man, you just happened and I just happened, and we're all cosmic accidents. And to talk about rights as if they're real demands that somehow we have real innate dignity. And that's exactly what Jesus and the Bible point out. That you and I are created in the image of God. We're not pond scum. We're human beings created in the image of God. And that is why racism is wrong. And that's why sexism is wrong. And in Jesus' best known parable, the parable of the Good Samaritan, what does he do? He makes a direct frontal attack on racism as he tells how a Samaritan gets down on his hands and knees, cleans out the cuts and bandages the wounds of Jew. And there was all type of racial tension between Samaritans and Jews in first century Palestinian society. So, what you've got to realize is, Jesus has been corrupted. Oh, you know the white Jesus. No, Jesus wasn't white. Oh, you know the Republican Jesus. No, Jesus was not a Republican. Oh, you know the Democratic Jesus. No, Jesus was not a Democrat. Oh, you know the Jesus who was born in the Big Apple and wrapped in an American flag. No, Jesus was not wrapped in an American flag. He was wrapped in swaddling clothes and laid in a manger. Man, that is why the most number of Christians, followers of Christ, are in Africa, South America, and Asia. Not in the United States, not in Western Europe. So the whole idea that Christianity is the big white hope is a joke. It's totally false. Have I answered your excellent question?
So, in the beginning of the Bible, or towards the part you talked about where they were denouncing racism,
Yes.
and that was in the Bible.
Right.
So, why did it happen for so long in our time now? Why was slavery such a long and brutal process, and why did racism even occur in America today, if that was his entire plan the whole time?
You bet. Because the human heart is sinful. And therefore, sinners will use racism to make money. They'll use lying and cheating to make money. They'll use degrading homosexuals to make money. People will be greedy. People are sinners. And slavery and racism are undeniable examples of how we human beings need a savior, because we're sinners. Now think about that a second. If I were to say to you, no, we don't sin. Okay, so we're not sinners, like some of you believe. Fine. Then what happens if someone murders your mother or father? And what happens if the legal system says to the perpetrator of that murder of your parents, you're off scot-free? What is that saying? It's saying that your mom and dad are inconsequential. They don't matter. And if someone wants to murder them, if someone wants to have a racist attitude towards them, that's cool. You don't matter. You see, Jesus Christ says you do matter. And because you matter, if someone has a racist attitude towards you, enslaves you, lies to you, cheats you, date rapes you, that is evil. It's wrong. Why is it wrong? Because you matter. You matter to God. He created you with value and dignity. So don't be quick to dismiss the idea of sin, because it means we're responsible for what we do. We do matter.
So isn't there a scripture in like Ephesians, something like that, where something goes along the line like human, it's like slaves obey your human masters as the human obeys Jesus Christ?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But then in John it'll say, what is it? It's like something like love thy neighbor, along those lines. Is that not literal inconsistencies or literate inconsistencies?
Good question. Because you have a mind that's so sharp that you can see that problem, and it is a textual problem, you better study the context before you jump to conclusions. Okay? Paul writes, slaves obey your masters. Who's he writing to? He's writing to people who live in the Roman Empire. Slaves were about 40 to 50% of the people who lived in the Roman Empire. It had nothing to do with race. It had to do with indentured servitude. It had to do with economics. That's why doctors, lawyers, business people, often in the Roman Empire, were slaves. Meaning by that, they were indentured servants who gave themselves up to a wealthy person for food, for housing, for salary, for the whole kit and caboodle. Then when they worked their way out of that indentured servitude, they weren't slaves any longer. So understand the context. Slavery in the Roman Empire had nothing to do with the chattel, evil slavery in the United States when we brought Africans over here. Totally different situation. But still, it's not good.
So not still indentured servitude at some point though.
Pardon?
Slide out like right after they got like their rights technically, like Jim Crow, is that not technically a form of indentured servitude?
Oh, sure. In the United States, slavery has been grotesque. It was all race-based. It was horrible. But there's a difference between that and indentured servitude. Now, it doesn't mean it was right. Okay? Now, what you got to do is you got to read Matthew 19. The reason you got to read that is because some religious teachers come up to Jesus and say, "Hey, Jesus, is divorce good?" And Jesus says, "No. From the beginning, the Creator made them male and female, and said, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother, be united to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." But these guys are sharp. So they look at Jesus and they say, "Well, then why did Moses say that if you want to divorce your wife, you got to give her a certificate of divorce, and then you send her on her way?" Now, the answer of Christ is fascinating. He says, God permitted this because of the hardness of your heart. So, polygamy, slavery, divorce were never God's intention. Instead, they are occurring due to the hardness of the human heart, sinfulness. That is not God's ideal. Well, where do you read about God's ideal? You go back to Genesis 1 and 2, pre-fall. Before human beings, Adam and Eve rebel against God, there you've got the perfect world. And you don't have slavery, you don't have racism, you don't have polygamy.
Does the Adam and Eve story not break your number 3 rule though about once upon a time?
Okay, good. Very good. I like you. You're a thinker, man. It's an honor to talk with you, sir. Okay, you're right. Genesis 1 and 2 are really hard. Why? Because the literary style of Genesis 1 seems to be poetry. What do I mean? Now watch the parallelism. Because remember, Hebrew poetry is not words that rhyme at the end of a line like our poetry at times is. Okay? Instead, Hebrew poetry is parallelism, where ideas are put parallel to each other, and you see that consistently through the text. Okay, so Genesis 1. First day, and God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Okay, what does he create on day 4? The sun. All right, I'll read it for you. Now watch the parallelism. Because remember, Hebrew poetry is not words that rhyme at the end of a line like our poetry at times is. Okay? Instead, Hebrew poetry is parallelism, where ideas are put parallel to each other, and you see that consistently through the text. Okay, so Genesis 1. First day, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Okay, what does he create on day 4? The sun. Okay, what does he create on day 2? "Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. That's day 2. So what does he create on day 5? Fish for the water, birds in the air. Clear parallel between day 1 and day 4, day 2 and day 5. Day 3, what does he create? He creates dry land on day 3. And on day 6, he creates animals and human beings. So you see the parallelism there. That is why to say Genesis 1 is a precise historical account, I don't think is honest. Is there some history in there? Yes. But how much and exactly what? I do not know. Because the language is vague. And so when the language is vague, I got to be honest and say, guys, the language is vague. Now we do know that when Jesus says, "I am the door," he's not claiming to be 2 pieces of plywood slapped together. We do know when Jesus says, "I'm the light of the world," he's not claiming to be a 100-watt light bulb. But that's easy metaphor, right? You can see that. You can also see his use of hyperbole. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better to enter heaven with one hand than with 2 hands to go into hell. But he's not literally saying, take out a machete and slice off your hand. He's using an extreme form of speech to make a point. Does that make sense? Yeah, hyperbole, exactly. Man, it's good talking with you, sir. You're thinking, man. Thank you.
I just break all 3 rules, though. You broke 3 rules and 4
Whoa,
rules.
whoa.
Just like
What were those? Wait a second. Wait, think with me. Come on now. You're good. What were those 4 tests to determine what? the historicity of a document. And we were talking about the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And those 4 tests, when you apply them to the Gospels, show that the Gospels are historically reliable. And you're right. Genesis 1 and 2, which you raised very well, is not history. No, it's not. It's not fairy tale. It's poetry, which is different. Okay? You've got history, you've got mythology, you've got poetry, you've got apocalyptic literature like the Book of Revelation, highly, highly symbolic, some weird images. And those are different types. And then you've got scientific literature. So you have many different types of literature, right? And you got to learn to respect literary style, otherwise you're going to flunk out of this place. If you read Shakespeare the same way you would read a science textbook, you will flunk.
Which is facts,
A play.
Exactly.
Created in the mind of Shakespeare, right?
To an extent, what makes that anything different than the poetry that you're reading and the scriptures that you read? What's the difference at the end of the day?
Okay, good. You better read Shakespeare fairly, and you better figure out what's he trying to do. And obviously, he's trying to put together a play. It's very entertaining, and he's trying to make some points, I think. Moral points, mainly. Doesn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is didactic teaching, moral teaching. It is not a description of how physical process called science works.
There's no science in the Bible.
Thank you. That literary style, you're absolutely correct, sir. That literary style, scientific literature, is nowhere in the Bible. Which means if anybody says to you, science contradicts the Bible, you know that's very sad. It shows they don't understand science and they've not read the Bible.
It does kind of contradict the
Bible.
How?
It's a total contradiction of science. Or of the Bible, excuse me.
Good. I am a follower of Christ. I believe in evolution as a process, not as an origin. You're right. Evolution as an origin, the idea that there is no God and there's just a physical process that happened by chance and chance mutations and natural selection and we come about, that obviously contradicts the Bible. But evolution as a process, that life evolves, that is not a contradiction of the Bible, because the Bible never answers the question, what process did God use to create? It's impossible for evolution as a process to contradict the Bible. Of course, evolution as an origin obviously contradicts the Bible, no question about it. Exactly. And the Bible says, in the beginning, God, not in the beginning, hydrogen. Man, it's an honor to talk with you. You track, and I respect you.
Some Christians do weaponize the Bible against people who
Yes.
are, like sexism, homophobia, racism.
Yep.
And I don't understand that at all because, especially with sexuality, God said He loves everybody, and love is love.
Yep.
So why do people feel like people who love different are less than, and that they're going to hell? But that makes no sense. That contradicts. Because God loves.
Okay, good.
It's a person of love.
All right, let me ask you something. I'm a follower of Christ.
Yeah.
I am married to Sharon.
Okay.
I find these two women gorgeous.
Yeah.
If I follow Christ, is there something wrong with me trying to seduce them?
Yes.
What's wrong with that? Is that not judgmental for you to say, yes, there's something wrong with you trying to seduce these two women? Why? Why is it?
I mean, you're committed to one person.
You're committed to one person, yeah. But guess what? I really love them. And so I want to seduce them. So are you going to tell me that's wrong? And if so, why?
I was meaning towards like a man loving another man or a woman loving another woman.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Great point. I love my wife, Sharon. I'm committed to her, and I'm going to be faithful to her. And I can love her, and I can love her. It doesn't mean I have to have sex with them.
Right.
Right? Okay, a man can love a man. I love a lot of guys. But it doesn't mean I'm going to have sex with them. Why? Because God created our sexuality to be enjoyed within the context of a lifelong commitment between one man and one woman till death parts them. And that is why, for me to try and seduce these two women is evil on my part. Does that mean I'm a piece of dirt? No. It means I am valuable because I'm created in the image of God, but I'm a sinner, and I better face that. And what is sin? It is violating the purpose for which God made me. And God did not create me to have sex with every good-looking pair of legs I can hop into bed with.
No. But people do love, their own sex. Like,
Yeah.
I
love guys.
Like, I'm not attracted to other women, but I know women can love another woman.
Yeah. Good.
I don't think it's a sin. It's love.
Okay. The challenge is, who defines love?
It's all down to the person. It's between two people.
Okay. I would partially agree. But what is love? Love is not infatuation. I find these two women gorgeous, I want to have sex with them. That is not love. Love is, I care about you so much that I'm going to work for your well-being. To the point of being willing to forgive you if you hurt me, to the point of being willing to sacrifice for you, because I love. You see, Jesus defines love differently than our culture defines love. To love is for me to actively wish her well-being, for me to actively wish her well-being. To love means to be able to make a promise to my wife. I will be faithful to you till death parts us. And guess what? I can keep the promise or I can break the promise because I got a free will. And now I better ask God for the grace and the strength to keep my promises, because keeping your promises is a big part of what it means to be a human being created in the image of God. Okay, does that make any sense or not?
It makes sense. It's, I just know a lot of people who do weaponize it are the same people who are, sinning. Well, everyone sins.
Right.
But like, I don't know how to say this.
It's okay, you're doing well, keep going.
It's like they'll go cheat on their girlfriends and then condemn another person for loving someone that may not be conventional. But
Good. All right.
That's what really irks me.
Yes. And it irks me also. Okay? So here's how we do it. I have a lot of friends who are adulterers and adulteresses. I have even more friends who are into fornication. I got a bunch of friends who are homosexual and lesbian. Every single one of my friends is just like me. Valuable because we're created in the image of God, and sinful because we've rebelled against God's will to do our will. Because why? Because my choice is supreme. It's all about choice. So just because I'm born with a natural drive to do something doesn't make it right. When I was 4 years old, I played in the sandbox. I picked up a metal truck and dropped it right on the head of a playmate, and it hurt. Nobody taught me to drop metal trucks on people's heads. I did it very naturally. I am born with a readiness to sin factor in my life, and I proved it by dropping a metal truck on a playmate's head as a 4-year-old. Yes, ma'am.
What would you say to someone that says, well, if God is so loving, then why would he send somebody to hell?
Good question. My answer to that is, God doesn't send anybody to hell. Human beings choose to go to hell. What does that mean? God created us to live together with him. But because he gave us a free will, we do not have to live together with him. We can live separate from him. If I choose freely to live my life separate from God, he's not going to haul me into his presence, into heaven, against my will. The only reason there's a hell is because God takes our decisions seriously, and if we want to live our lives separate from him, he permits that. Now, how have I not answered your excellent question?
Well, what if they were like, well, why do I have to go to hell specifically? Why can't I just
You bet.
not live or exist after we die?
You bet. Great question. The central nervous system that you have and that I have, we get a lot of pleasure from it. It's a gift from God. Taste buds that allow us to enjoy food. It's a gift from God. Rational minds that we can use to think and reason. It's a gift from a rational creator. The artistic ability to be creative. a gift from the Creator. Conscience, the ability to distinguish between good and evil, and then to try and live a good life and respect people and have deep, meaningful relationships. It's a gift from God. Now, when we choose to live our lives separate from God, we are separating ourselves from the giver of all those good gifts. And the reason that hell is going to be so horrible is because it is separation, total separation, from the good God who gives us good gifts. Now, I love parties. That's a gift from God. The ability to be gregarious and have meaningful friendships. And so a lot of guys say to me, well, I'm looking forward to going to hell because that's where all my buddies are going to be and we're going to have a keg. But you see, that's forgetting something. It's forgetting that your ability to party and to celebrate another human being and to enjoy another human being is a gift from God. And in hell, you're going to be separated from God. There will be no enjoyable parties.
In my opinion, if God in Christ is perfect, and like me being a Christian, how am I supposed to continue living, trying to attain being good if I'm never going to reach that perfection? Sort of like how, Paul says, like those people who question that, like, should we continue sinning so grace might abound, or should we, not pursue goodness, because if we're already going to be made perfect in the end, what's the point?
Okay. It's very, very similar, the answer, to getting an education here at Texas State. If you get a BS in biology here at Texas State, do you know everything there is to know about biology? But you know enough to keep going, don't you? If you get a PhD in biology, do you know everything there is to know about biology? No. You do postdoc work in biology. Do you know everything there is to know about biology? But you know enough to keep going. If anybody says to you, I know everything there is to know about biology, they're lying through their teeth. Okay? But you know enough to keep going. Well, it's the same thing when Jesus says to you and me, be perfect. He's saying there is truth. There is a lifestyle of goodness, of justice, of kindness and compassion. That's very, very good. Now, you're right. You did a good job quoting Romans 7. Paul writes, the good that I want to do, I don't do. The evil I don't want to do, I do. Wretched man that I am, who's going to deliver me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ. In other words, thanks you, Jesus, for your grace. Because I fall far short. But you see, sir, just because you don't know everything there is to know about biology doesn't mean you better not bust tail. Study biology, and if you want to go on and get master's, PhD, postdoc, whatever, do it. All right? And the same thing with Christ. You're right, I'm a long way from being perfect, and I've been a follower of Christ for over 60 years. And I'm far short of perfect. But I'm going to keep growing. I know enough to keep growing. Right? The same way, hopefully, you know enough to keep studying biology. And you just don't say, well, because I can't know everything there is to know about biology, I'm going to stop studying. No. The search for truth is crucial.
Oh, I guess why is it crucial?
Because it's the only way you're going to grow as a human being. If you don't search for truth, be it scientific truth, biology, be it historical truth, U.S. history, African history, South American history, be it personal relationship about how to build a deep marriage, a quality family, I'm always learning how to love my wife better, to love my children better, because I don't do it right. I fall far short. I need help. And that's why I turn to Christ for help. Very similar to why I turn to professors to teach me about biology, because I don't know enough about biology. Does that make sense?
So I guess what you're saying is, no, we're never going to reach or attain perfection.
Right.
But we have a blueprint.
Yep.
In order to get there for the purpose of growing, because growing ensures that we have kind of, not exactly perfection, but we can kind of emulate, or I guess that foggy mirror that Paul talks about.
Yeah.
So that way, what's considered evil doesn't prevail, because in the face of what is true, I guess, if people don't know what's true, evil can just run terrain on people.
Yeah.
I guess racism and sexism and all that.
Exactly.
If you don't know what's true, you're going to be easily fooled, and then people's lifestyles will corrupt them and kill them in the end.
Bingo. And then to take it one step further, what is the ultimate problem in the world today? We got a lot of problems. But what's the ultimate bottom line problem?
Selfishness.
Very good.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, sweet. That's exactly what Jesus pointed out. The ultimate problem in this world is sin, and a very accurate way to describe sin is selfishness. Okay, so what's the solution?
Selflessness.
Selflessness. Very good.
But you can never be perfectly selfless.
Correct. You can never be perfectly selfless, but when you begin to experience the love of God, the acceptance of Christ, when you begin to experience the forgiveness of Christ, the grace of God, that begins to change your heart, your motives, your ambitions, and you change. And it's with His help. That's why. You see, if you look at the problems in the world today, I don't care if it's marriage, family, business, science, medicine, politics, national relationships between different nations, the problems come down to ultimately sin, selfishness. I want my way. Oh, you want your way? Fine, we'll go to war. Oh, I want my way, you want your way? Fine. I will force it down your throat to do it my way. And that just alienates people. But love and selflessness, Christ says, that's what I want you to do, and then become a peacemaker instead of a warmonger, either relationally or with neighbors or against different nations.
And as far as since we're never going to be perfectly selfless,
right?
Those moments where we're selfish, say, everybody does things for vanity. Like the stylish clothes that we wear.
Yep.
You're doing it for yourself. You're not the Bible says you're supposed to do everything for God, but that seems kind of impossible because there's just innate things that we do as humans for vanity's sake.
Okay, but wait a second. I love your emphasis on selfishness, but don't misdefine that. Okay? Is it selfish for her to be dressed the way she is?
I guess it would depend on the person's motivation.
Okay, good. Very good. But I would argue no. She's a beautiful woman. She clothes herself in a stylish way. That is not selfishness. That's a celebration of the gift of a body that God has given her. Now, if she uses her beauty to manipulate men, if she turns a blind eye or a deaf ear to the cries of the starving and is not generous with some of her resources, then we got a problem, right?
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
Is it wrong to get an education? No.
No, like we said earlier.
Exactly. To get an education is to develop the mind that God gave you so that you can serve God by serving people better.
Okay.
Right?
That actually makes a lot of sense. But I see in our culture, how do you properly celebrate things like that? Because we don't.
That's exactly right. How do I celebrate her beauty with not getting into lust, manipulation, selfishness? Very good question. And the line can be pretty vague at times. And that's why we need God's Holy Spirit to change us, to grow us into better people. Because too often, I go over the line right into selfishness. So good to talk with you. Thank you so much for your line of thinking.
Thank you very much.
So, for me, it's just that religion has not satisfied its burden of proof. So, I'm, an empiricist. I'm, somewhat of a armchair scientist.
Okay. I think that's very dangerous. I don't think you can live that out. What I mean is this. Science tells me that if I drop cyanide into my grandma's tea and she drinks it, she will die.
Yes.
Right? Science does not answer the question, should I put cyanide in my grandma's tea in order to get her money? Science has no ability to answer that question.
The is from a not, moral question is what you're saying. Yeah.
So that is why I don't think you can live out your worldview that says, I only live according to science. Science is a wonderful branch of knowledge, we agree on that, right? But when it comes to ethics, morality, priorities in life, ambition in life,
Well, I mean, I don't think science like attempts to answer that, does it? I think that that's more the field of like philosophy and ethics and
exactly.
I mean, there's plenty of like religious exclusive like ethical frameworks that people live by. They live like full lives. Now, you know, I've had a number of these debates, so I'm sure you'll come at it being like, oh, there's no like objective sort of, you know.
Right?
Yes.
If there is no God, morality is relative.
Yeah. Subjective, yeah.
Which means, if you say to love this person today is good, but next week you say to hate the person is good, you're not wrong, you're not right. It's just your choice. Choice is king, queen.
Do you think that it's not ethically and intellectually honest, though, to acknowledge that because of the lack of burden of proof that we don't have the, you know, a religion that hasn't satisfied its burden of proof, that it's the case that it's more honest to just acknowledge that we create ethical frameworks?
Okay, but if you believe that we create our own ethics, then please don't judge my ethics.
I mean, I can judge it from the standpoint of my ethical framework, though.
Well, why would you do that?
So, for me personally, I'm kind of like a utilitarian sort of perspective, but that's kind of downstream of some more like, you know, humanitarian principles that I have.
Yeah.
So anything that disrupts that, and I feel like because we do live in a society, we do share living space and all this stuff, that it would be in most people's best interest to have an ethical framework that we can maximize happiness and, you know, and I think that most people would agree. I mean, and I think that was naturally born out of the fact that we are like a social species and the fact that we are a society and we work together and we've improved society. I think that, you know, most people would say that we are better off having a kind of like gravitated towards a utilitarian framework.
So the bloodiest century in human history was the 20th century, right?
Yeah.
Between Stalin, Mao, and Adolf Hitler, 3 atheists, we have about 100 million
Adolf
people
was
killed.
Adolf was not an atheist.
Really? What was he?
So he says many times that he's Christian, and he even like praised the Catholic Church. There's obviously like the historical context where the Catholic Church was tied into Nazi Germany, but he said many times that he, you know, was a follower of Jesus, and he said many times. Now,
No, he did not.
He did.
No, he didn't.
There is explicit quotes of this, but
Mein Kampf.
I'm not.
Just read Mein Kampf. And repeatedly in Mein Kampf, Hitler points out, no way is Jesus Christ valid. No way. Because he was a Jew. Jesus was a Jew. So you're trying to argue out here that Jesus, a Jew, was worshipped by Adolf Hitler? Sir, Hitler tried to exterminate Jews, not worship them. Repeatedly, Hitler tried to pull Christians, including Catholics, into his party. And yes, he did say some positive things about Catholicism and about Protestantism. But what becomes crystal clear is he murdered priests and ministers. He murdered Christians.
You're coming to a place of 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and acting like you know everything. And it's honestly kind of pathetic.
Okay? I have repeatedly said, I do not know. I have repeatedly said, if anybody claims to know everything, they're a naive fool. So I don't know where you get off telling me that I'm standing out here saying I know everything. I don't know everything. My knowledge is very limited. But I do know that I have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I'm a beggar who has found where living bread is in a personal relationship with Christ. And I've come to tell fellow beggars where they too can find bread in your own relationship with Jesus Christ. He loves you, man. He loves you more than anybody loves you.